Coming up next, the Partnership for a Drug-Free America.
Suffolk County 911.
I need help.
Where are you at?
Well, ma'am, I don't know exactly, but I'm freezing, and my girlfriend is freezing.
Mike, I want to help you so bad, hon. I want to find out where you're at.
My phone's just about to die. You're my last chance here. I'm scared. Please help us.
Valerie, the previous campaign, or at least a campaign long ago, they used to, this is your brain on drugs. They fried your brain, and now they're freezing it. Why the change?
I was thinking about that the Partnership for a Drug-Free America, their previous ad strategy, and that strategy got mocked and parodied by druggies everywhere.
Everybody.
I don't remember how it got parodied. I hope maybe someone else remembers. But I know it was a big fat joke. And one thing I think is good and effective about these new anti-meth ads is they're about death. And you can't really co-opt death for humor. Death isn't really very funny.
Oh, the day is young.
Do tell. I don't think they can do it. I don't think you can parody death.
Well, but I have a question. Why is this commercial for OnStar not have a happy ending? Nobody knows OnStar?
So what you're saying is, no, I know those commercials, so I think
just
your
like an
question is,
OnStar
it's
commercial.
like an
Yeah.
OnStar commercial with a sad ending, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
I find this very effective when I watched it, and I should own up to this. I've made commercials like this, for around drinking and driving issues and for substance abuse rehabilitation centers, and so I know it's part of a big campaign, and I believe it's a very effective approach. I mean, when I watched it, I was just chilled. I was just, sitting there and going, wow. And
You said you were chilled.
they were in a blizzard.
They froze to death.
Yeah, but and I noticed a lot of ways to critique it, but I think you're right. I mean, you can't argue, especially with the way
I couldn't disagree more. I think this is the most moronic thing I've ever seen. This is one of the worst anti-drug commercials I've ever seen. First of all, it plays into the most overt hysteria, which is ridiculous. Look, everybody that's involved in anything to do with drugs is sitting there going, where are the 9,000 other phone calls where people are going, dude, you got to get over here. We got some great stuff. This is one of those hysterical suggestions that everybody who does drugs is going to be lost in a blizzard and freezing to death. And by the way, this is no defense of crystal meth. That it is an absolute killer. It is a horrible drug. Don't mistake my point of view here for any of that, but this is nonsense. This is the kind of hysteria that is just reeks of cynicism, and one watching this who needs to be persuaded by this is just too jaded to buy any of this stuff. What this says is don't do crystal meth unless you're in Florida, is what it says. What this says is if you're going to do crystal meth, keep your cell phone charged. You can't help it. This is essentially saying it's a blizzard. They were disoriented. Duh. I mean, that sort of comes with the territory of blizzard. This is like saying don't do crystal meth while you're being attacked by a shark. It's just moronic.
I think there's an interesting angle, though, in that meth. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at, illicit drug use and, sociological angles. Meth is largely a rural drug. Yeah. And here they're wandering around. I mean, I looked up the case, and they actually were wandering around some cornfield. They got out of the car. It was probably their big mistake. You don't leave the car in a blizzard.
And it's also a case, I mean, you're saying it was kind of a celebrated case. It was on Primetime, I think, the ABC show, Primetime Live.
Really?
Yep. They did a whole thing on the people. She was in college. He was the boyfriend since 7 years old. I mean, there's a long story behind it. And for many people, not just the people who saw that episode, but also the people in the region, because they were lost for a few days. It was big news in all the papers. So a lot of people know about this. So this is a spot. One of the things I learned as I was doing this work is people say that it takes 51 times for them to hear messages, for them to realize they have a problem. That's the average. For some people it's 5 times, some people it's 100 times, but it averages out. And to me, you drop messages in when you can. And I find this as a message that in the whole, I don't know how many people are going to put down their pipe and say, I need help now, or let's not get in the car, or whatever. But
This kind of a message is a paper tiger, and I think it works against what you're trying to do. The people that you're trying to reach, this has no effect on. It just falls away. It's nonsense, because how many people die lost in blizzards who aren't on crystal meth?
But when they're 2 miles from their home, when they're in a place where they don't know, when they call, and this is part of the rest of the story that's not here, they called 911 and said, the aliens are taking apart our car and putting the pieces of the car in trees. And then he said, well, I went to speak to the neighbors, but they don't speak English. There was so much disorientation going on. It's not just about a blizzard.
Yeah.
That's fine to talk about in the context of the case. That's not what this ad is. This ad is nonsense.
It's the marketing of meth, and they're coming out with a new version, cherry crystal meth, just to keep the sales up. They are.
You're laughing, but strawberry Coke is very big right now. And I'm not kidding. Strawberry Coke is making the rounds these days.
Okay. It was a preventable tragedy. Name another preventable tragedy, Jim.
Gingivitis.
Ooh, Nana?
Bad relationships.
Valerie?
Childhood death due to malnutrition.
Ooh.
Victory over Iraq.
The tragedy in Tehran.